Hello and welcome back to another episode of The World Beyond Belief. We're your co-hosts, Mindy Erkin and
Paul Marco.
And tonight we're going to pick up on a conversation we started last episode. Hope you all caught episode 109, Alien Messiah, where we mentioned a news article that Paul came across in a newswire about the Sky Dreadnaught, a cigar-shaped UFO-looking object seen over the Ukraine. But as it turns out, it wasn't exactly a UFO. Paul, why don't you say a little more about what it was?
We don't know whether it's a UFO or not because, they're calling it a UFO. And then a story we saw on the Turner Network news feed claimed that it was an American ship. It was an American killing machine. This thing...
the greatest weapon ever known to mankind.
And there it was over the Ukraine, using anti-gravity to fly around, and because it's capable, it could just fly off to the moon at any given second.
That's
it's
right.
anti-gravity, and it can go in and out.
In and out of the atmosphere.
So we don't know whether it's just a crock or whether there's some validity to it. If there's no validity to the Americans claiming that it belongs to them, then whose is it? Because there's certainly plenty of video evidence that there was something there. But anyway, if it was a product of the American government, it also claimed to be kept under the water.
That's right, housed under the water, which leads into the article that our friend sent to us just this week.
Right, they might have found where they keep it. They came up with this supposedly underwater base off the coast of Malibu, California, in an area that's noted for UFO activities and has been for the last many, many years. Let's hear a news report on this one.
In a story that is blowing up around the internet, an alleged massive underwater base has been found in Malibu, California, in Google Earth. This funky-looking plateau structure is about 1.4 miles wide by 2.5 miles long. It's about 7 miles from land. The structure looks to have a ceiling that is about 500 feet thick, which would supposedly make it nuclear bomb-proof. You can see what looks to be its 600 feet tall pillars holding it up out front. Others believe that this isn't an underwater base at all. It's just a simple land formation that happens to look like some sort of underwater base from the right angle in Google Maps. Basically, it looks something like this, only covered with a bunch of sand. Anomalies like this can also happen due to the way ocean mapping works, and the inability of it to get a perfect picture of everything. What do you think?
Well, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it could be where they keep the Sky Dreadnaught. The way they described it, it's large enough, the entry is large enough for that thing to fit in as big as it is.
Yeah. Well, there might be many underwater bases, and I'm not sure this is an underwater base, and I'm not sure the Sky Dreadnaught exists. But it reminds me of an old joke I think I heard in elementary school. You know, where do you keep your imaginary car? In a mirage.
Oh, I just got that joke.
Okay, in the last podcast, we talked about the alien Messiah. And by making that podcast and getting feedback, we've discovered that UFO alien stuff, government-related programs, misinformation, made the perfect subject matter for the world beyond belief. Because it really, there's such an array of beliefs on this subject matter that it's hard to even fathom. And everybody will certainly disagree with most everybody else on the subject matter. It feeds disagreement, it feeds discrediting one another, calling one another tin hats, get real kind of statements. Look, down through the years, we've been, first of all, told that they didn't even exist. Even Obama, if you watch the last podcast, says that there's no evidence that there is any presence of aliens. Uh, we've watched for the last, I don't know how many years, ever since there were movies, we've watched science fiction movies about aliens, flying saucers, who knows? And we know that there's been government programs, many of them, we'll talk about some today, that have kept, just deliberately and purposely and with no lack of great effort, kept information from us in this field. Disinformation agents have been hired and are planted all through the UFO community and to give us bad information. Any credible body that's not governmental, that's established to investigate the crashes and other aspects, other physical evidence of the UFO, are immediately infiltrated by the powers, and the new information gets gobbled up and it disappears. So here we are, we're all in the same pickle. We don't know what to believe, but it's the perfect subject to work the beliefs and see how open and narrow-minded we are and see if we can connect some dots and see what's really going on.
So tonight we're going to talk about our favorite subject, aliens, UFOs, and stuff like that. Our focus for this podcast will be the UFO lore around World War II, before, during, and after the Second World War. So let's start with what we will call the legend of the Vrill.
Our story starts with a book of fiction written in 1871 called The Coming Race by Edward Bulwer Lytton. This book formed the basis for a couple of the secret societies like the Thule Society, the Brill Society, that were operating in Germany between World War I and World War II. But how could a book of fiction have such an influence?
Well, it's all about the author because he belonged to one of the secret societies. What was it? The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Yeah, he was a Rosicrucian too, I think.
Mm-hmm. So he knew a lot of esoteric knowledge, which no one else was privy to, and that's one of the ways that information gets disseminated to other initiates, for example. So basically the book tells the story of an explorer who, while exploring a mine, falls through a deep crevice and is the only one of his team to survive. He ends up in this subterranean world, which is populated by a species that he describes as very classical looking, larger than most humans, but not quite as large as giants. And he describes them as close to an indigenous race, more so than any other. And these people have mastered the use of this special energy called Vrill. And with this Vrill, they can fly, they have, anti-gravity machines that can take them anywhere, but they also have wings, which they put on like clothing and can fly individually. But the main feature of their society is this harnessing of this special power which they call Vrill.
It's a natural power in the earth. It's not, it doesn't pollute. It's just a natural flow of life energy. So you can imagine the German secret societies in the 1910s, really being interested in finding this Vrill, this unlimited source of free energy. It seemed like a worthwhile pursuit. So let's continue on to the Brill Society and the people that created that society.
So the Vrill Society was founded as the All-German Society for Metaphysics in 1921. And they founded to explore the origins of the Aryan race, to seek contact with the hidden masters of Ultima Thule, and to practice meditation and other techniques intended to strengthen the individual mastery of the divine Vrill force itself. I found it really interesting that many of the original founding members were a group of really beautiful women with long hair. They were psychic mediums, and they say that they used their long hair as part of their power, I guess, for connecting with the people they were channeling from, perhaps.
In 1919, the Vrill founder, Maria Orsic, met with members of the Vrill Society in a rented hunting lodge near Berchtesgaden, Germany. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss telepathic messages that Maria had received. She brought 2 piles of papers containing transcripts of the messages she had been given. According to Orsic and her sidekick Sigrun, the messages came from the Aldebaran solar system located 68 light years from Earth in the constellation of Taurus. One series of messages were written in a script that Orsic did not recognize, but was thought to be a German Templar script. The second set of messages were completely unrecognizable to Orsic and Sigrun. With the help of the Vrill Society members, the scripts were examined and determined to be ancient Sumerian script, a rare language used in ancient Babylonian times. Orsic and her Vrill co-leader Sigrun translated what they could and found that the messages contained instructions for building a circular-shaped flying machine that operated off of the mysterious Vrill energy.
So they immediately took these plans to the Technical University in Munich to Dr. W.O. Schumann, who was, by the way, also a member of the Thule and Vrill Societies himself.
I think this Schumann character seems to be a good guy. He, even though he belongs to these secret societies in Germany between the war, he has a famous quote, and I want to read this, and I think it's really relevant to everything. And I learned a lot from it just as we were making this podcast. It says, quote, "In everything we recognize 2 principles that determine the events: light and darkness, good and evil, creation and destruction. As in electricity, we know plus and minus. It's always either or. These 2 principles, the creative and the destructive, also determine our technical means. Everything destructive is of satanic origin. Everything creative is divine. Every technology based upon explosion or combustion has thus to be called satanic. The coming new age will be an age of new positive divine technology." So he wanted to move into a new era where we were not using explosions to create our energy that he considered satanic and negative. He wanted to use positive energy made by implosion. Now, the Vrill Society may have been able to make one of these spacecrafts, the design of which that was channeled to Maria Orsic. And the evidence we have of that is that a craft similar to this with a Vrill engine had been moved from one storage facility to another in 1924. But that's all we have on that. Skip ahead to 1934. Okay, so in 1934, the head of the Brill Society made a movie about the first woman on the moon. And the first woman on the moon movie made a lot of money. And so they were able to finance the construction of the RFZ-1, which was certainly a craft powered by Vrill energy. And incidentally, it was built by Werner von Braun and Hermann Olbrich, both people brought over during Operation Paperclip at the end of World War II.